there's nothing like cracking that cellophane, pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father.
Man, this stuff rocks.
Hey, this is George Lynch from Dokken, KXM, and a whole bunch of other projects, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Radio Network, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Radio Network.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father, and as always, I bring you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today, it's an honor and a huge privilege to welcome back Mr. George Lynch, guitarist of Lynch Mob, KXM.
Hello.
KXM and formerly of Dokken. Lynch Mob will release their 1990 classic debut album, Wicked Sensation. Wicked Sensation was released 30 years ago, and as an anniversary edition, Lynch Mob reissues the Milestone record in a re-imaged version, reworked and re-recorded versions, and let a great album shine even brighter, that's for sure. So, George, man, how you doing, and what's up so far with you?
Well, just, acclimating to our new reality, like everyone else. But as in regards to the latest Lynch Mob record, the 30th anniversary, Reimagined, we finished that record, fortunately, just before all this pandemic business came down. So we got in right under the wire. We had no idea what we were going to be dealing with, but it was really the last thing that we were able to do, the last time we were together, last time I've been together with really, the band in any, musical way where we were working together. And it was just kind of strange to think about it, how things used to be.
Yeah, this pandemic has thrown everything awry. I mean, everything's all screwed up now because of this pandemic.
It is manageable if we would just do things like other people have that have been more successful at managing it. I think that's the simplest way to put it. So I think it would make a lot of sense to look. I'm not a genius or a medical person or anything, but it would seem like it was just common sense to look to places that have done really well with this. Places like New Zealand, a lot of European countries and Asian countries, even Canada, and who have really got a handle on it and allowed life to come back much closer to normal than we have, and a lot less pain and suffering. There's a way to do that. So I think it would probably be good for us to go by their example and mirror that example, the way that we behave and how we manage this.
Mm-hmm. I agree 1,000%.
I will get off my soapbox and we can talk about music now if you like. I just had to get that out of the way.
No, you're right, man. These other countries are knocking this out of the ballpark and taking control of it, and it's just like we dropped the ball and everything just about. I don't get it.
And in the meantime, I guess it's up to all of us individually, locally, regionally, and as individuals and families, just to try to be as smart about this as possible, and get through all the disinformation, and listen to what the scientists and the medical professionals, people that dedicate their lives to understanding how this stuff works, epidemiologists and people like Fauci that study this their whole lives and take this very seriously, and listen to them.
I want to touch on this just a little bit because you're not using the name Lynch Mob no more, because you first established Lynch Mob as a solo project using your last name, of course, in '89 while Dokken was on hiatus. With everything that's going on now with social injustice, why change the name now, and how much has this affected you, man?
Well, I just have to say that the name, there's always been a problem with the name from day one. I remember doing an interview with the Village Voice in the first year Lynch Mob was formed, and we decided to use that name. And the interviewer was a young black woman who was very bothered by the fact that I'd used that name, and I had to try to explain it. And I found myself not really being able to explain myself very well. I mean, I knew my argument was disingenuous. I mean, I can make the argument that, yeah, it's my last name, but I know that that's not what most people think about.
Sure.
And I know what the word represents. Mm-hmm. So in my younger, dumber days, I was able to just sort of rationalize it. It seemed to be less of a topical, hot potato issue. I thought, well, I'm going to be okay. I mean, most people understand this is not, has nothing to do with what it's normally known as. It's my name, and we've got this kind of desert western vibe, and it's, they strung up cattle rustlers too. There's that argument. That's all silly argument. I don't buy it myself, and I wouldn't use it these days. But I found myself, really scrambling for a logical way out of that interview, and she really had me pinned down, and I felt bad, not bad enough to get rid of the name. So I held on to it, obviously, for 30 years. And, I got to say, in all the years that I've had that name, it's gotten more and more uncomfortable. And of course, now, recently, to the point of not really being able to rationalize it any longer. In addition to that, though, there's some other things at play here. As I said, we finished this record right under the wire before the pandemic hit. And once the pandemic shut down touring for at least a whole year or more, or who knows if we'll ever tour again, Lynch Mob being basically a touring act, my only touring act, the band scattered to the four winds, so I really didn't, in essence, have a band any longer. And then I finished this 30th anniversary record and really loved the way it came out and thought, actually this makes a lot of sense. I should end this chapter of my musical career now. This should be the last Lynch Mob record because it mirrors the first one. It's a nice bookend. I can retire the name and on a high note and, meaning, going out with a good record, what I think is a good record. It's kind of wrapping it all up in a nice neat package and putting a bow on it, and I felt like the time was right to do that. Everything's sort of triangulated and events all just coordinated to sort of come together at this point to make it pretty obvious that this was probably a good time to go ahead and move on.
Now, I know this is the 30th anniversary of this album, but what led you guys to re-record the album? Was there something that was just missing when you went back and listened to the original album, or is this just something you guys said, let's just go ahead and just, let's just redo this?
Well, I mean, the criticism I've seen about doing this record is that you're messing with something it's sacrilegious to mess with the first record. I don't understand that argument because we're not doing anything to the first record. The first record will always exist. It's always there. Mm-hmm. You don't have to listen to this one if you don't want to. But what this is us having a whole lot of fun with something we created 30 years ago that was the most successful record that we've ever put out. And we did it for a lot of reasons. One, to have fun, which we did. We had a blast, all just hanging together, having beers, having food, having a good time, having laughs, and working really hard and getting in and getting it done relatively quickly. So we captured a moment in time, and the band was on fire at that point. They had just come off the road, and I think we did a fantastic job of reinterpreting a lot of the songs. I had no interest in remastering the original Wicked Sensation record, or remixing it, or doing any silly thing like that. That's a money grab. What we did is we took this original songs and reinvented them. Because 30 years later, we're completely different people with different sounds and different styles and different ideas. And I imagine that would be really interesting to a fan. It was interesting to me to see what would happen if we did that. You got Brian Tinchy on drums. You got Corey Logan on vocals. You got Robbie Crane on bass, who all played together off and on for years and decades. Very tight pro band. We're on fire on this record, and we just had a blast doing it. And why not? I mean, we're not taking anything away from the original record. I mean, the way I like to look at it is the original record took a year and a half and over $500,000. A team of people, 2 producers, 5 engineers, 5 studios, just blood, sweat, and tears, tons of money, tons of time. Worked that thing until it was over processed. I mean, it's a beautiful record, but I mean, it's highly produced.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even the vocals were not. I mean, the vocals were, most of them were flown in off a rehearsal tape into a sampler, repitched to a different key, and flown back onto another tape, one word at a time. I mean, that wasn't an honest record. So, I mean, we were able to recreate it live, but it was not an honest record. It's not like when the band plugged in how we sound. This record is. Was done very bare bones. So there's a lot of songs on here. But there's only one guitar track. This Lynch Mob Wicked Sensation original record, there's songs with 17 guitar tracks. In a band with one guitar player. So this is a lot more honest and genuine and just transparent. We set up in a room, came up with ideas very quickly. We had our tempos, I changed my riffs up a little bit, decided on an approach, and went for it. And knocked it all out in a matter of weeks for, very little money and very little time, and it was just very stripped down and honest. And I love that about this record. You got 2 wicked sensations. Hold them up and go, wow, I like this one for this, and I like this one for that.
Any track standing out more to you than any right now on this album? After you guys have redone it, I mean, I know that this is a 30th anniversary of it. I know we have redone it, but are there any tracks that still stick out for you, possibly, George?
Absolutely. The track, the number one track for me, by far, is Shuttle. It's not a big hit. It's just an album cut. But I loved how we transformed it and just made it almost punk rock and adrenaline energy. All these vocals just distorted, intentionally distorted, it just, he was on fire. It was just beautiful, raw energy. One guitar, again, just no overdubs. All played just right from the hip, very tense.
Now, working on this album from the get-go, from the very first time, was there a song that you guys were working on that totally ended up sounding different or took a major turn or ended up finishing it, I should say? Yeah,
about half the songs are done in a completely different style than the original. We didn't transform all the songs in that way just because it felt right to leave some of them a little more closer to the original arrangement and style and tempos and things like that. Not all the songs work when we try to change them stylistically. But songs like River of Love, 4 a Million Years, Hell Child were transformed dramatically, and other songs less dramatically. It's the songs that really took a turn that we did completely different than the originals that I really love listening to the most. They're the most interesting. For instance, 4 a Million Years is all done with electric 12-string. It's almost got like a bird's quality to it. So it's a whole different listening experience. I have no reason to go in and try to just re-record the album in a way that was similar to what we'd already recorded in 1989, 1990. That to me has a little sense. That again would have been a money grab. That wouldn't have offered anything different to anyone. So I don't really understand the criticism that anybody has of this record, quite honestly. When other people will just come out and put out a remastered version of their records, which doesn't really mean anything. Nobody has a problem with that, which I think is actually that I have a problem with. So we put a lot of work into this and tried to make it interesting and engaging and be creative with it and have fun with it. And if people can hear that, I appreciate it.
How was working with Brian Tishy on this? Because I know in 90 you guys worked with Max Norman. How was working with Brian on this album?
Brian was not really planning on using a producer, but Brian sort of stepped up and filled the shoes of a producer on about half these songs. You know, he'd come in, him and I initially got together and went through a lot of these songs, just him and I in a room, drums and guitar, sort of planned out how we were going to do this, tempos and stylistically. And then once we were in the studio, he was offered me a lot of ideas on the guitars that were very, very useful and very interesting, and things that were outside the box that maybe I hadn't thought of or wouldn't have thought of, and really helped me get those recorded properly, get them across. He did the same thing with the bass, which him and Robbie worked really hard on. He recorded all the bass tracks, engineered them, and produced them along with Robbie. And the bass on this album is insane. It's like a whole story in itself. It's like listening to Entwistle and Iron Maiden and, you know, every other guy from, you know, classic rock and, you know, that bass player that you love. It's just a phenomenal job. Really interesting. Every little thing, every little nuance, every little part is unique. You know, it's very complex, and, you know, they were in the laboratory, and it was a lot of work, and they really went in there with a fine-tooth comb and did a beautiful job. And then, you know, and of course, Brian was one of the greatest power rock drummers on the planet, and a multi-instrumentalist, you know, kind of a Swiss Army knife guy, I like to call him. People I work with, you know, like Jeff Pilson is like that, and other people I know that, you know, they play guitar, they play bass, they play keyboards, they sing, they write, they engineer, they mix, they, you know, you name it, you know. So it's always great to have one of those Swiss Army knife people in your band, you know. Jeff was that for us in Dokken, and Brian was that for us on this record.
I think it's crazy that people, like you mentioned, are criticizing this, because to me, I think people should open up their ears and just sit back and relax and be like, look, man, these guys are rehashing this, you know, and just doing it a different way. I think that's awesome when bands can do that. That's just my opinion.
Well, you know, you can't make everybody happy, and we're all built different. We all want different stuff. So, you know, I guess in the world of ideas and the marketplace, you know, if you can make half the people happy, I guess that's pretty good. I guess that's what we have to be content with.
George, in your own opinion, what do you hope everyone takes away, or message you hope they hear while listening to any of Lynch Mob's music in general? Man, what do you hope they get from it, or just anything that you do?
Well, music is like a mirror of everything else in life. It's something that's in a total state of flux, constant state of flux. There's never a moment in time where you can pin it down and say, this is what it is. You know, if I play a lick, and I play that same lick an hour from now, it's going to be different. That's because I'm different, the world is different, molecules have changed, the atmosphere's changed, you know. It's this great mystery that I love about music, and I'd be sad if it wasn't true. It sort of makes life livable and gives deeper meaning to life, having that mystery, because, you know, we don't want to know everything. And the fact that music is mysterious is reflected in this record, where we were able to just, you know, come together, 4 people as friends, and have fun and work hard, produce something, I think, of value artistically, and serves a very important purpose in our lives, to be able to, you know, find this artistic things that we all appreciate. So I think they're very sacred things, you know, and there's some beauty in that we need to be careful about how we treat them. And how, you know, just imagine a world where we didn't have it, you know, music was gone.
Yeah.
What if they had an infection that killed music?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you don't appreciate things till they're gone. And you know, the process is so beautiful, and I'm very fortunate that I get to be part of that process. I try not to take credit for it, because I don't even know how it happens or why it happens. And I love that. But it does happen. It happens through a process that's very mysterious. And so this record is a product of that process. And it always fascinates me every time it happens. We get to the point where we're actually finish something like this, capture a moment in time, and able to share it with people. So I hope people understand that that's where we're coming from. It's really, and I do have to say this on the other side of the coin here. I mean, what I do is a job, partly. I have a big family and support my family doing this all my life. And I work really hard, and I respect that. I respect people when they support us. And I want to show that respect by doing a good job and not taking it for granted. And so I work very, very hard at what I do. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what I put out there. And I hope people appreciate that. And I don't want to dishonor people. So there has been some criticism that I read on some blogs that really did bother me very deeply. And that was that this was a money grab, and quote unquote. And that really, really, really hurt, actually, because I'm not discussing, business and numbers. To be very, very honest and explicit with you, this record paid us almost nothing. We made very, very little money on this record, much, much less than we make on any other record that doing it for recent years. Mm-hmm. We did it out of love and passion and the desire to do it because it sounded like it makes sense to do. That was really the only reason. There's a little bit of money there. Believe me, if I told you the number, you'd be like, wow, those guys work for that kind of money. I mean, it's just like, a month plus work out of our lives, Mm-hmm. We have to pay our mortgages, we have to pay our bills, our car payments, our insurance, support our kids, our families. And, it costs thousands of dollars. And we spent over, a month of hard work where we just went in and woodshedded and dedicated ourselves to creating this thing. We got paid very, very little for it. So if somebody comes along and says, oh, this is just a cheap money grab, that's the furthest thing from what this was. And it hurts me for people to say that. It's very off the mark and not true in the remotest sense.
Will you be doing your solo stuff under a different name, possibly?
I've got so many other projects that are going to keep me busy, and there isn't any touring for the foreseeable future that I can see on the horizon. So at the moment, I don't really need to fill that void. Lynch Mob, I don't need to fill the Lynch Mob space with something else. I've got KXM, I've got Sweet Lynch, I've got Dirty Shirley, I've got The End Machine. I've got a new solo instrumental record coming out called Seamless in the fall. I've got the music. I've got another project I did with Jeff Tilson, Heavy Hitters, which is us doing the top 40 hits over the past 50 years that we recreated with other guest artists. People like Duran Duran and Madonna and Little Richard and Timbaland. I mean, we did all these top 40 hits, and we did them in a different style. It's really an very interesting record. Mm-hmm. That's called Heavy Hitters. That comes out in the fall. So I've got all these, myriad of projects. Starting a fourth KXM record. I'm working on a second Yen Machine record as we speak. Probably doing another Sweet Lynch record next year, and another Dirty Shirley record. So I've got lots of record projects. No touring coming up, so I don't really need to come up with a musical entity or a band that fills the Lynch Mob away right now. But at some point, I want to have another touring a home, a core band, and I'd like it to be a bigger band and something that would allow me to really stretch out and do anything instead of just the four on the floor Zeppelin lineup, Van Halen lineup, guitar, bass, drum, singer. I'd like to add, keys, second guitar, percussion, who knows, horns, have good backup vocals. I mean, have the whole thing, the whole package, and be able to go anywhere, play the music of my youth, explore my roots, jam, improvise, play covers, play any song off any one of my records over the last 40 years, play stuff from my bands before Dokken if I want to, stuff I'm working on now that nobody's ever heard, just do anything I want. Do an old R&B cover, go metal, just do whatever. I mean, experiment,
I absolutely love what you've done over the past 30, 40 years, especially so of course your solo stuff with Lynch Mob, plus you got KXM, which is a badass band, honestly. And then plus what you do with Sweet and Lynch. That's, man, Michael Sweet and you, that's awesome in my book.
Yeah. I mean, none of these projects I've done am I regretful in any way. I'm so happy with all of them. They're like your children. You love them all. They're all beautiful in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as one's better than the other. They were all fun and wonderful experiences, and got to work with great people, really talented. I'm so fortunate that I have a little bit of a name where I'm able to work with people like Ray Lazier and Doug Pinnick and Michael Sweet and Dino and all the other different projects I've worked with, Angelo Moore, Pancho Tomaselli. It's just fantastic. I just sometimes have to pinch myself, and work with these guys. And I love working with people that push me beyond my capabilities, and push me out of my comfort zone. So a band like Ultraphonics, the Project Infidelicate, was like that. Playing with guys that are heavy funk hitters, and come from bands like War, have all this kind of deep Latin and percussive history, and they're just fantastic players and great students of music, going way back to music from the 30s, Ethiopian jazz, and stuff that I've never been exposed to, and it's just I cherish those moments playing with those guys. I honestly had no business playing with them. But it's made life a lot more interesting for me, and so I try to walk that fine line between doing what people expect of me, which I also enjoy, creating music like Lynch Mob and Dokken-esque kind of stuff, but also on the other hand, going back to my roots, just blues and R&B, soul music, early rock and roll, classic rock, 60s, 70s rock is what I was raised with, and what is really the basis of everything I do. And then on the other hand, also improvising, which I love to do. And I don't see too many people in the rock genre doing that, maybe for good reason. But when I was younger, in my garage band days, that's all we did was just improvise and jam. And true improvisation. I mean, we wouldn't have any ideas. We would just start playing and see what happened. And I love that. That'll always be a part of what I do. My live shows, I like incorporating that into my shows. And at some point, I'd love to find a way to record something like that. In fact, quite honestly, actually, I just thought of this. Ultraphonics has a record coming out. It is pretty much that. We set up in a studio in L.A., and we camped out there for 3 days, and we're just kind of like exploring ideas, and we just left the mics open. And it's all just real rough ideas, and they weren't really songs. Just we were jamming, and captured all that on tape. And Your Music is going to be putting that out next year. It's sort of a fly on the wall moment. The fans the opportunity to kind of be in the room with us.
That'd be awesome. Folks, you want to get out and pick up the 30th anniversary of Wicked Sensation, reimaged by Lynch Mob. You want to pick this album up and give these guys a lot of support. Pick up everything that George has. Also, he's got some great stuff out there. A lot of projects that he's done. So, George, how can folks stay in touch with you, buy this album, all the good stuff that you have out there? How can they do that, good sir?
Well, I think all the usual outlets. I guess how people are buying music these days. I'm not a big fan of streaming because they don't treat artists and composers very well. But I buy stuff on iTunes. That's basically how I buy my stuff. You can go to Rat Pack Records, though, and also check out all the bundles, which is pretty cool. They got all kinds of. They got vinyl. We got T-shirts. We got. Interestingly, they have cassettes. Pretty cool.
That is.
Yeah. That's. But personally, for me, I just go on iTunes. That's how I buy my music.
I actually went on Rat Pack last night and bought the CD where I get the guitar picks and autographed CD cover, man. For $29, it's worth every penny of it.
Yeah, you get those bundles. They're really good like that, and people love that. You get extra, the guitar picks. Yeah, I forgot about those. You get those. You can even get COVID masks.
Yeah, I saw
With the
that.
scary COVID mask.
Before I let you go, good sir, would you care to do a promo for the show, George?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, this is George Lynch from Dokken, KXM, and a whole bunch of other projects, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and BODS Mayhem Hour podcast. Please go check out our Facebook page. It has a podcast link, YouTube link, and all the links that we're associated with out there. Trust me, we're all over the place. Also, please get out and check out Lynch Mob's 30th anniversary album, Wicked Sensation Reimaged. You will not be disappointed. Also, pick up George's other stuff that he's done also with KXM, Dokken, and all that good stuff, folks. George, man, I wish you always the best of luck out there, dude.
All right, you too. And with all these other new projects coming up, I'm sure we'll be talking again real soon.
Yes, sir. You're always welcome back on here.
Oh, thank you so much. It's very sweet. Okay, talk soon.
All right,
Take care. Stay healthy and sane.
You too, George. See ya.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.